Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle Tech Talk series. Today we'll be showcasing how to protect your network from risks that bring your own devices can bring. My name is Shannon Miles and I'm part of the product marketing team here at Untangle, and I'll be your host today. I also have with us our Director of QA, John Coffin, who will be taking us through the demonstration and of course answering any questions along the way. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. Please be sure you're selecting the correct audio preference on the right-hand side. If you do select to use a phone, make sure you use the dial-in number and the access code that is provided. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so you will have the option to rewatch or share this recording as you see fit. And as always, we'll be answering questions along the way. We have a few team members online to help answer questions, so please just make sure you submit those questions through the Q&A box on the right-hand side. And if for some reason we aren't able to get to your question, or if you have a very specific question, please send us an email at sales@untangle.com or support@untangle.com. Now, before I move and pass this on to John, I just want to reiterate this is a highly technical webinar, so if you're not familiar with Untangle, our solutions, or networking concepts, then this may not be the best webinar for you to listen to. We do have another webinar series called our 101 webinar series that are more higher level topics, and you can check out those upcoming webinars on our website. And with that, I will pass it over to John.
Thanks so much, Shannon, and thanks everyone for joining us for this webinar. So one of the things we're going to discuss today is with so many people carrying smartphones and their own laptops to the office, a lot of times we have to kind of manage not only their mobile devices that are connecting to your network, but also maybe corporate phones and how to protect them when they leave your network. So we'll kind of carry that in two stages. So first of all, how to protect your network from people bringing their own devices to the office. Probably one of the best ways to do it is just separate those mobile devices from your corporate LAN network. And we'll kind of go over some of the things how to do that. The other parts, if you can't do some rewiring or your particular network is not constructed that way, or maybe you just want a simpler network and not have multiple networks for different devices. We'll show you how to detect some mobile devices, how to do that with either authentication, using a captive portal, or based on the browser properties that the device uses to signify what kind of browser it's using on the network. And then we'll talk about how to create separate policies based if it's a mobile device or if it's a connected LAN. First of all, how to separate mobile devices from your LAN network. So I kind of made a simplified network layout here. In this case, we'll have the corporate LAN, which we'll put on, for example, our internal NIC, which is right here. And this is based on the firewall, the Untangle firewall being the router for your network, and you have multiple NICs on it. We can have, for example, a separate NIC, or we can create a VLAN, which is just a virtual NIC, for our corporate wireless, and maybe there's a different password for that. That allows any kind of laptops and so forth that are on the corporate network to be connected to that. And then what we can have is either an employee wireless or maybe a guest wireless that we connect to a separate network. So here we've separated the different networks with different NICs. So if we go to our Untangle, and we'll configure different networks, and we can rename these for every, whichever network that we're looking to do. For example, we can call this, we can just go ahead and rename this. And, we'll say this is our, NAT, so forth. And just call it address. We'll, give it an IP address, for example. and give it a network space. We're also, provide DHCP for it. And then usually give it a 1 hour duration, and we'll leave everything else the same. So we'll hit done, and see now we have this network that we know it's for our bring our own devices, and we want to keep that separate from our corporate LAN for various reasons. So people maybe can't download documents directly to their mobile device. Maybe we'll want to do that so they can't connect to particular resources, or for example, maybe we just want to keep any chance of viruses coming into our network or malware coming from our network through that device. So what we can do there, since Untangle normally has all network devices connected together, so all these interfaces can actually talk to each other normally. So what we want to do is prevent that. So we'll go over here and add our firewall app. And we'll get that installed. And then what we can do is make a rule and just say, we'll add a rule, and we'll call it, block our bring your own devices from our LAN, our network thing. So we'll add a condition, and we'll say we want, let's say the source interface is going to be, and here's the network that we named. So we'll go ahead with that, and then we'll add another condition, and if the destination network interface is going to be our internal, we'll go ahead and block that. And we'll go ahead and flag that just so we can have. So that will block any connections coming from anybody who brings a device connected to the guest wireless network, and then trying to connect to our corporate resources, servers, laptops, so forth, are going to be blocked from going to that. But they can still get out to the internet, which makes it very helpful if people are doing research and they want to do it on their phone, or they're trying to keep connected to various resources like email and so forth while they're on the move in the office. That's one of the straight ways to do it, where you're able to connect access devices again directly to a separate NIC. It makes it very clear what those devices are, and they're not connected to your corporate NIC. Like I said, another way of doing it is by detecting the actual mobile devices, and we can do that through policies. So we can go through here, and then we'll have to have our policy manager. So there's various ways, and we'll also use our captive portal in this case. Okay. So we went ahead and installed our policy manager. What we're going to do is create some special racks or policies. So we're going to add a mobile network, and we're going to make the parent just our default policy, so we don't have to keep track of multiple ones. So we'll go back to our excuse me, policy, and then what we want to do is change and make sure we have a separate captive portal in this mobile device. So we'll go ahead and add a separate one for there. So what we need to do now, this is assuming your wireless and your regular corporate net are on the same network. So we want to capture that. And one of the ways we can do that is what we do is we create an authentication page. So we'll say, we want to capture our network. We want to use authentication where they have to actually log in, and they'll have a username and password. And in this case, we're just going to use local directory. But in a lot of cases, in a Office network, you would have some kind of directory, Active Directory if you're using Microsoft Server, Active Directories, or you could do a Radius login, or even go with a Google if you're using that for the Office. So we'll go ahead and save that. So now when people log into the network, and then what we'll do is create our rule. If everyone in the network is logging into their Windows thing and they have an Active Directory or a Google account, what we'll do is create a policy that says, we'll create a rule, and we'll say, we'll say login page for everybody that's not authenticated. So we'll add a condition. And in this case, we're going to go with username. And I'm trying to find, oh, here. For username, oh, right here. So it's username, and we're going to say if they're not authenticated. That means they don't have a username connected to that device. And what we're going to do is we're going to send them to the mobile policy. In that case, what's going to happen is when the people authenticate, they automatically go to, they log in, and they'll get the captive page. So let's go back to that. So when people connect to the network, they automatically will get this authenticated page where they need to log in with their credentials. And it could be the corporate network and so forth. And that way you can manage as if they logged into their desktop or whatever. You can manage their what websites they're allowed to go to, what kind of services they can access over the internet based on their login. So that mobile device will act the same as their desktop. And it's a way of doing policies by usernames instead of by devices. And so it's a very useful way. And this is the way you can get, if people bring their own devices, they get the authentication page, because since they didn't use their Windows login, they're not authenticated, and they'll be sent here, and then this will authenticate them and put them back into the default rack. So, for example, so that's one way to do between authenticated and non-authenticated devices, and keeping them in the right policies, even if they're bringing their own device to the office. Another method of doing this is through browser properties, and this is not 100%, but it works fairly efficiently. I actually use it myself on a couple of live sites. In this case, what we'll do is I'll show you a real example of this. So we're going to our policy manager, and if we look at the policy rules, what I've done is I looked at a lot of mobile devices and saw what's in common with it. First of all, a lot of iPhones, iPads, and so forth have the word home for iPhone or pad for iPad in the username for the device given when it gets their IP address from DHCP. So it's a good way to figure out. And what I do is if I detect that as the host name or in the HTTP client header, if I notice either one of those, I'll send that into my mobile device policy. Again, I can do the same thing for Android. Usually I'll have some kind of Android in the name of it, and then I can redirect that to my mobile device policy. And the mobile device policy for me, in this case, is kind of more generic. It's more like the guest. It's like a guest policy. It's kind of restrictive of what websites I go to, but and they're also separated. I use that firewall rule again to separate them from my corporate LAN. So if I have guests coming at this business, they can freely access their email and go to the internet, but they can't access the resources using my firewall rule. And that's one way to do it. And then I can show you what the
Oh, I think we lost John there for 1 second. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, we know audio just dropped. I think John had a little bit of technical difficulties. There
it
you
looks
are.
like the application kind of quit on me
No worries.
for whatever reason. Let me know where I got cut off here.
I think you were just in the middle of describing the different policies for that you use for this generic default, or not your default, your mobile device policy. What you use for this one, as it's a guest network. I think that's where you kind of cut off.
Sorry, people. Yeah, so the mobile devices policy, I use web cache. Again, I use the captive portal really as a basic login. So if you see it, it just kind of says that, you know, the internet's monitored and, you know, don't follow don't go any websites that you normally would not go in a public place. But that kind of provides internet access for people bringing their own devices and also for guests who are coming for the network. And that brings us to, you know, how to protect your corporate net from outside devices coming into. The flip side of this is you have, when you have company devices, let's say company-owned phones, laptops, and you want to protect them when they leave your corporate network, because those, again, will be connecting to your corporate network, and if they you know, have a virus that they get while they're outside their network, they can bring that in and then start infecting all the boxes in your network. So in those cases, what we generally recommend is we do and I'll just briefly go over this because we actually have a whole webinar on VPN, and it does get into the details on how to set this up. But what you do is, like, if you have a corporate phone, you'll have full tunnel VPN set up on it. Probably the easiest to use is the LTTP, which is part of the IPsec, or you can go with an open VPN full tunnel. And you can have it where the user cannot turn that off. And there's two methods to do that on the bulk of the devices out there. On Android, there's something called Google Mobile Management. It's free, part of your Google email and application suite. So you can actually hook devices up to your Google account and manage the VPN settings. So even if they can get into the Android settings for VPN, they won't be able to shut that off because they don't have permissions to do that. Again, Apple, for their iPhones, have the exact same program. It's called Apple Device Enrollment, and it works through iTunes. So you'll connect your phones, you know, their corporate phones that you get to your corporate iTunes account, and then you can set the VPN to always be on. So whenever it's connected to even the cellular data, or it's connected to an outside wireless system, the VPN will automatically kick on and connect to your Untangle and filter the devices there. The greatest benefit of that too is not only keeping viruses off your network when they come back into it, but your corporate employees can access network corporate LAN network services through this VPN. It's just automatically on. They don't have to think about connecting it. Again, it's really simple. You just go into, and I'll kind of cover this in kind of broad brush strokes because it is quite involved setting this up. And again, if you go to our webinars that are available on YouTube, you can actually get a full setup on this. So again, so right here is L2TP, pretty easy to set up. You can just set up configurations and then you put in the password for their particular connection and they're ready to go. This allows that device to always be filtered through your Untangle, and that way you're not surprised, like they get some virus on the outside, they come back in the office, and then they start infecting all the machines at the office. It's a pretty useful thing. So two things to take away from this is that way of separating your network from people bringing their own devices, and a way of protecting your company devices when they leave your network. Is there any questions that we had, Shannon?
Yeah, there are some questions about using SSL certificate installation with using Captive Portal for mobile devices. I don't know if you wanted to discuss that.
Sure, that's a great question. So again, you know, with the changing times, more and more websites are using HTTPS, so it's harder to figure out, you know, where devices are going to unless you have SSL Inspector. One of the difficulties in using the SSL Inspector, they do require the certificate from your Untangle installed on that device. And one way we've had that, you can actually go out and just install it on devices, but for people bringing their own devices, it's a little more difficult. So what you have to do, and let me go over here and install the SSL Inspector, is we'll go into our Captive Portal. And for the Captive Portal page, we'll go down here and we'll say it requires their certificate. So what happens if they try to log in and that certificate is not installed, they won't be allowed to log in. They will be given an option to install it. Let's just take a quick look at that. Let me go ahead and save that real quick. Let's see here. Oh, I don't have that. It's a custom page. What it allows you, they'll have a link at the bottom, and it allows them, I think I have to save here. So let's get this set up real quick. So we'll go ahead and save that. Yeah, there's a custom page that allows you to add that to their rules. When they go to the Captive page, they'll have a link here to download the certificate, and they actually can install that on the device themselves. So that's the two ways. I generally recommend for more, if it's not for like a corporate LAN where the devices can be pre-configured for certificates, I do recommend that you probably not use SSL Inspector for like guests coming in. People generally don't want to download anything to the device. from some network. So I generally recommend not using SSL Inspector unless they're doing it for like a wireless corporate laptops and so forth, where you can pre-install that for them.
Hey John, there was another question in regards to with users connecting via VPN, how the network stays safe with that connection.
Right, the network stays safe because first of all, it's less likely that someone will be able to put a virus on that laptop because it's not connected to this remote network freely. It's actually protected because all the traffic's going over the VPN. The second part of it is that it's going through the policies and the web filtering that you've designed for your security. So for any website they're going through, it's actually going to go through your web filtering and any kind of firewall rules that you have that you've designed to protect your security. So normally they would not have that extra layer of filtering if they, like at a hotel, and they're just surfing the web, or somebody intercepts that connection and directs them to a malware site. They could in turn get malware on their device, not even know that, and then bring it back to the corporate net. This way you're actually filtering that and maybe preventing the access to a malware location. Is that about all the questions we had that were open?
Yeah, that's about it. There were some questions about version 13. Version 13 was released a few weeks ago. We're doing a slow rollout, so if you haven't seen that upgrade button on your Untangle, then it will be coming. If you want to get on early release, you can email support@untangle.com with the UID of your box if you would like to receive the release early. We do have some other questions coming in. If you have VPN automatically connecting on a mobile device and the user comes to the office, what will the device do being behind the firewall?
There's a couple things. So if you're using one of the like Google Management or Apple's device enrollment program, they will actually disconnect based on just the SSID that's there. You can actually have it say, if you see this SSID, don't bother connecting with VPN. If it does connect to the office, it actually won't make a difference at all. It'll just be connected. It'll be on a different IP range. You may want to, I don't know if you're going to restrict that or if you're okay with it being on the LAN network.
Great, thanks, John. If you guys have any more questions, please submit them in the Q&A box. We have a few more minutes, but we can continue going.
Just a couple things that you can actually in reporting, you can actually see some of the let's go over reporting so you can see what's going on. Some of the things you can look at, you can go into your policy manager and actually look at sessions by by the type of traffic. So I'm just looking real quick. Unfortunately, I didn't get that, which number that was. So if we look at our policy, so mobile policy is number 6. So if I go ahead and go to reports, and then I can look at how much traffic or sessions I have. So as you can see, 6 is very little of my traffic. So people are not creating a lot of traffic on that. But if you see a lot of people with their own devices creating a large percentage of your corporate network, you can tailor that with bandwidth control. You could actually maybe lower the amount of speed that they have for their devices. Some of the things you can do. I can look at the traffic. So it's in this case it's almost not even eligible. I can go ahead and then look at my captive portal to see how many people logged in. haven't gotten used to 13, we actually list this alphabetically, which is so much nicer to find. I'm still used to the old list. So I can look at, how many people logged in. Let's see, captive bulk summary. So like just today, I've had 3 people log in through the mobile captive portal. Kind of gives me an idea. I can change this date to look at, various dates. Like I can look since the beginning of the month. And so I've had 8 users logged in through using their own devices to log into the network and separate it out. I don't use logins. I just let them realize that they're going to be logging into a managed network. So all my logins are anonymous. I can even look at session events and things like that. I can also look at how many people decided not to log in to the blog. So this person with a Samsung Galaxy S7 actually did not log into the network, and it was blocked from the network. So some people, for whatever reason, decide not to log in the network, or they don't want to see their traffic monitor. You can see that they're not logging into the network. That's about all I had.
Okay, there's one question. Is there a way to filter and apply Untangle policies to mobile devices with their own cellular data connections?
So you can with cellular connections by using VPN. So you can either have it where people voluntarily log into their VPN and it's filtered, or that they, because it works similar. I mean, cellular data is just another TCP network over an analog cell signal. So in those cases, you can either do the always-on VPN, or you can do voluntary VPN where they can manage their own connections on that, and then you can filter it on that cellular data. A lot of people use that, for example, like schools. If they give out devices to students, since it's a school-owned device, they still need to manage what internet locations they go to. So they have the always-on VPN that can be turned off, and then that data is managed from a remote location. And it doesn't matter if they're on a wireless or they're using the cellular data. It's still managed the same way.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. So I think, let's see, there are some more questions coming in. Can you,
Well, one of the things that you can look at too, I didn't cover the session viewer. So again, this is 13. So this is the new session viewer, which gives you a lot more information. So I can go in here and just say, I want to go ahead and add my policy column, so I know what policy. And then what I can do is then filter. I want policy 6. And currently I actually have no mobile data going across this network. So let's just sort this real quick. See if we have any. Yeah, there is no mobile data. So that shows you how little network that you can have if you kind of control what people connect to. A lot of people are not very comfortable with their internet traffic being monitored, which is fine if they're bringing their own device, and they can choose not to connect. So a lot of times that can really improve your bandwidth, because if you have 30 employees, they're all bringing a phone. If they start browsing, start streaming video through their phones and so forth, it can take a huge hit on your bandwidth for your network. So this is a way to say, hey, we're going to monitor you, so they're less likely to be streaming, video and so forth through it. So it's a very useful tool in monitoring people who are bringing their own devices to your company or school network.
This is a little off topic, but someone's asking if OpenVPN or IPsec VPN is which one is better, and I'm assuming you're going to say the same answer as me, where it depends on your network and what you're trying to control.
So I'll kind of give you the pluses and minuses. I personally use both because it's kind of like a hammer and a screwdriver. There's times you need a hammer and there's times you need a screwdriver. So IPsec is great because just about every device, modern device now, has the IPsec client built into them. Windows, all the phones, iPhone, Android phones, they all have IPsec built into it. It's really nice. You can walk someone through over the phone on how to set it up, and they're done. With that said, a lot of ISPs also block IPsec. A lot of hotels block IPsec. It's super easy to block. There's only one port that goes out to. This is where OpenVPN becomes in handy. It's much more robust. It's using UDP, which is less likely to be blocked, and it's easier to connect. You can change the ports on them. There's a lot more flexibility. The downside is you have to download an app onto any device that you're going to use OpenVPN. If it's Windows, luckily Untangle provides a straight installer that installs it for you and configures it all for you. If you're on iPhone, you have to download the OpenVPN app. Then you have to upload your certificate and configuration to it through iTunes. Android is very similar. What I usually do is just transfer it over through Bluetooth, the configuration files, but you have to install the OpenVPN app from the Google Play Store. So, really, there's not one answer, and you have to kind of look at your network. If you think people will be going to places where they might be blocking some VPN services, OpenVPN, I would say, hands down, is going to be much better. It works well. If you want simple use, very generic across the board on every device, you're going to be able to install it. I would say use IPsec. It's super simple. Everybody has it built in. Like I've always had issues trying to get OpenVPN installed on a Mac. It's not very simple. IPsec, super easy. So, but again, IPsec, it's blocked many times. So, kind of depends on what you want to use.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. We want to keep on moving. We're running a little bit out of time. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. We're trying to get to them. If you are still confused or you need help with your installation or configuration, we do offer professional services. So that is always an option for you if you just cannot figure it out or have a very specific need in configuration at your network setup. So please contact us at sales@untangle.com to assist. We have a variety of professional services, whether it be a conversion service, a new installation, etc. Let's see. And as always, we've mentioned our various resources. We have our sales and support teams available. And we have a wiki, which is our formal documentation. If you want the version 13 changelog, it's on there to know what was all updated. We do have our forums, which is our community. So you are free to ask any question, and we have our engineers on there as well as other users can help answer your questions. Maybe they've had the same, some of the same issues that you may have had. Let's see, our next Tech Talks is on advanced networking in July, and then we'll have a 101 intro to NG Firewall. So if you know anyone that is interested in Untangle and doesn't really know much about us, that's the perfect webinar for them. Yeah, so thanks so much, everyone, for your time. Thanks, John, for the great demo, and we'll see you next time.